an interesting question on their website yesterday. So somebody wanted to know about Married at First Sight in Australia 2023 and whether Alyssa sabotaged her relationship with Duncan, yes or no. So funnily enough, I've been watching MAFS because I actually find it a fascinating psychological exploration. I find it very, very educational, and if people want to sort of be educated on psychological, dynamics in relationships, it's a pretty good show for that, to be fair. So there are these two characters in the show, Alyssa and Duncan. They matched with each other by the experts, and off they go on their romantic adventure. Now, to begin with, it looked like the relationship was going very, very well, and needs were being met and everything was in a harmonious space. And then what started to transpire was Alyssa was getting very, very triggered by a lot of things that were happening within the relationship. And oftentimes she was getting triggered by things that were not actually occurring in reality. Now, what I would say is that if Alyssa did sabotage her relationship with Duncan, which I think from an outside expert perspective, I would say yes, she did. I would say she did it though completely unconsciously, and I feel very sad and sorry for Alyssa because I think she has a lot of unprocessed trauma, and I think when we have unprocessed traumas live on in our triggers in the real time. So she has events from her past, the affair that she had previously, her past marriage, some issues that she's had either from childhood or from her time as an adult in relationships. Stuff's happened to Alyssa very, very clearly. So what happens is that when we have trauma that is unprocessed, we are braced for the next trauma to happen. We are waiting for the next terrible thing to occur. And that tentacle from the past into the present moment makes us hypervigilant and makes us kind of quite stressed out. And we can unconsciously think that our gut feeling is telling us terrible things are going on. So there were moments where they were on a couples retreat with other couples, and Alyssa kind of pounced on the fact that Duncan wasn't paying her enough attention. I know she got a lot of bad rap for that from people who watch the show and are fans of Duncan. But at the same time, I look at that and I think it's quite clear that that's an old issue, and it replayed itself out in real time on the show. And producers kind of edit things, and she kind of got a bad rap. But I definitely think there's signs of real unprocessed trauma around the areas of attention, the areas of being penalized for being a single mother, and people kind of not signing up for that, and people possibly other partners rejecting her because she is a single mother, her feeling alone or ostracized or judged or for her past or for things that have happened. So in a way, when we have unprocessed trauma and we're triggered, our gut feeling is telling us there's reality in this like moment here. But we cannot trust our gut when we have unprocessed trauma. Our gut can also be confused with that trigger. So the data that we're picking up on isn't necessarily what's really happening in real time. It can be a mixture of past-based things we haven't processed and some data that is filtering in here. And in some instances, our reactions can be disproportionate to what's actually happening in reality. And I think that's why a lot of fans were like, this is crazy and I don't get it. Like, she's just not acting normally. Truth is, none of us act normally when we have unprocessed trauma. We can be easily triggered. We can be easily confusing our gut for the trigger. We can be pouncing on something because we're probing and testing to see if that thing is real, if it's going to happen again. We're trying to, rather than have an uncontrolled demolition in our lives, we're trying to have a controlled demolition on our terms. So we are pushing to see, are you going to explode? We're testing to see if the thing is going to explode. But when we do that, we can unconsciously be sabotaging ourselves. I mean, I think there's a parallel universe where Alyssa was healed from her past trauma, didn't do all those kind of trauma reactions and got triggered in that way, and her and Duncan ended up happily ever after. So although I understand that he's moved on and things have kind of occurred there, in reality, this is what unprocessed trauma can do, because time doesn't heal the wound, action does. And you can talk till you're blue in the face with a therapist. Talk therapy doesn't process trauma either. What you need is to go on a learning journey. You need to understand your triggers. You need to understand the hotspots that they are connected to. You need to marry the things up. You need to understand your mechanism. You need to understand where your gut feeling and your triggers are being meshed together. And you've got to kind of take ownership of that stuff and manage your reactions proactively. So I really feel sad for the whole situation and how it played out. I feel a lot of compassion for Alyssa, because I know that she gets a lot of hate from the world out there. And I think at the end of the day, the longer I work in trauma and in the space of interpersonal relationships, the longer I realize that we have no idea what people have really going on. And when people react in that like really extreme way, that's such a sign that they have unprocessed trauma going on. So instead of just labeling people as just like blanket crazy or like, psycho or whatever, and teasing them about that behavior, we kind of, what we need to do is to see dysregulated behavior as a sign of unprocessed trauma, and to send that person love, and to hope that they, get into recovery and that they process that in a better way. So that's my answer to what I think happened with Duncan and Alyssa on MAFS. There's a lot of learnings that happened on MAFS 2023 for sure. I think there's a lot of interesting narcissistic behavior, tendencies, very interesting like gaslighting that has occurred left, right and center. Very intriguing coping mechanisms. There's a lot of human dynamics that you can learn from watching a show like that. So a fun question to answer in some ways, sad in others. But just remember that we don't know what's going on for people, and to, rather than judge them, to give them the benefit of the doubt and send them love. Okay? So I hope that answers the question, and take care till next time.